Well, hello there and welcome. Today we're going to have a panel discussion on manufacturing analytics. The title of our panel discussion is Bridging the Gap Between Operations and Finance. It's the first in a series of planned webcasts that the MESA Analytics Working Group has been working on. This one is delivered through RCA Institute and again with the cooperation of the Manufacturing Enterprise Solution Association, MESA.org. It is a panel discussion, and during our webcast, our panelists will share insight from their years of expertise on how analytics is driving the convergence and transformation of manufacturing operations and finance. And so with that, let's meet our panelists today. I am Chris Monchinsky. I will be moderating the panel today. I serve as the chair of the Manufacturing Analytics Working Group at MESA. And I am also Vice President of Manufacturing Intelligence at Automated Control Concepts. With me is John Jackie. John, can you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, my name is John Jackie. I'm with Dassault Systems. I'm one of their Delmia senior manufacturing business consultants. I've been here for about 3 years, and before that, I have 30 plus years on the factory floor, integrating everything from general PLCs to CNCs all the way up through the ERP layer. And with that, I'm going to let it go to Larry White.
Hi, I'm Larry White. I'm the Executive Director of the Resource Consumption Accounting Institute, and I've been a member of the MESA Analytics Working Group for about 10 years. My contribution to the Analytics Working Group is primarily a focus on financial information and integrating that with operational information. Todd?
Thanks, Larry. My name is Todd Simon. I'm the controller at Buy Aerospace. We will be the first company to certify a general aviation all-electric airplane, but we are a startup. But my own experience for much of my working life has been in the manufacturing space, and that's what I've always enjoyed. So I like the space between operations and finance myself. Alex?
Hey, thanks, Todd. So my name's Alex. I'm a marketing associate at Altavia Consulting. I'm probably the newest guy here. I first got involved with MESA a couple years ago, just going to events and meeting some of Altavia's potential clients, trying to get a better understanding of the marketplace. And now because I work in marketing analytics all the time, I figured why not hop over into manufacturing analytics? It can't be that different.
Excellent, excellent. So with our panelists today, we have an agenda, manufacturing analytics. And during our discussion today, we want to discuss and describe and impress upon you the disrupting force that digitization is having in manufacturing. These changes challenge our current approach to manufacturing, including the role of technologies that we implement and even the nature of the products that we make. And despite the disruption, there are many new opportunities that we can take advantage of if we can anticipate these changes. So the panel here today will give us some insight as to how you can take advantage of these opportunities and define clear objectives, a common set of analytics, and align all parts of your organization along the same goals. And finally, we'll have an opportunity at the end of the panel discussion to take questions from you in the audience. So with that said, just some housekeeping. To participate today, it is a Zoom. It is not a webinar-based Zoom. It is just a Zoom meeting. So you can use the standard Q&A. You can submit your questions and answers through the standard chat box. We will be monitoring the chat box. That is Larry's background task as he is the host. And we will look at those questions near the end and take them as they come in. And you should also be aware that this presentation is being recorded. And we will be able to post this later on via YouTube channels and other media that we can circulate through via MESA and RCA Institute. So I've been talking a little bit about MESA and RCA and throwing out many acronyms. Let me give you a brief idea of what MESA is, just so you're aware of who we are and where we're coming from. MESA is a nonprofit industry association with members over 40 countries, serving industry since 1992. We've been focused since our inception as a nonprofit, providing safe, non-commercial environment where industry professionals can meet, work together, and get their biggest challenges addressed. As you can see from the graphic, we think of ourselves as an organization that defines the convergence between manufacturing and information technology. And even though we started in 1992, that convergence and the issues that need to be resolved in that space have never been more important. The way MESA does this is through member participation, volunteer efforts, and the output that we provide through MESA is education, webinars such as this, guidebooks. We'll tell you a little bit about an analytics guidebook that's available from MESA shortly. Peer working groups such as this analytics working group. We're all members of the analytics working group from MESA, as everyone has already told you. And other various resources that are available in the resource library, which again stretches all the way back to 1992. So with that, let's start off our webinar and bring in our panelists. So to level set the discussion, I want to get some insights from our panelists on what the digitization of manufacturing means. John, can you start us off?
Sure, I'd be happy to. That's actually a pretty good question because it covers a wide range of areas. Here at MESA, there's a lot of different groups that take into consideration a lot of the data and the information, starting with the Smart Manufacturing Working Group, as well as the analytics group itself. In industry, we have things like the next, excuse me, the next industrial revolution. We have the Industry 4.0. We have big data. So many other names that all of this falls under. Some of the people think that if I'm not already using some of the terms within my own manufacturing organization, I'm already behind the eight ball. However, that I personally find that confusing because it's really not about using terms. It's about what problems are you solving. It's a little bit more pragmatic than that. Well, let's take a quick step back. We've been around since 1992, and so is digitalization. But digitalization is bigger than this. I mean, we've all been affected by some form of digitalization when it comes to things like financial services, automated banking, remote banking, wealth management. Just imagine not being able to look at your 401k at the drop of a hat or with a click. We all do it all the time. Media. I read this morning's Chicago Tribune on my phone before I started my day. And while I was having my first cup of coffee, we're downloading music, movies. Gaming has come such a long way in the world, as well as hospital and healthcare situations, telemed. And then the real big one is we live in the age of VUCA, where everybody wants everything their way. And we have Amazon, Amazon Prime. We have all of these things that are driving us to a new layer. Manufacturing, I don't think has been a leader. I think they've been a laggard and kind of slow to implement all of this stuff. But the digitalization of manufacturing being slow, I've been in this business for 30 years. But what's interesting about this is COVID seems to have expedited this. I can share with you some information that I received at a conference I was at just yesterday from the Manufacturing Leadership Council that said before COVID, how manufacturing was reacting to digitalization, and post-COVID, only 6 months later, everybody's like, oh, it's post-COVID. It's only 6 months later, folks. It's really about, we have to have this because we have to be able to pivot faster is the big thing. But digitalization really encompasses the whole PLM cycle, from ideation, creating an idea, whether it's on paper or whether it's in a CAD system, being able to digitalize that all the way through the manufacturing floor and integration of your supply chain along the way in a single unified model. And that digitalization is a way to fulfill all those roles along the way. Larry, I was wondering if you can expand on this from a perspective of specific examples and how other companies are looking at this from a financial point of view and how they're being impacted by this amount of data.
Well, specific to finance, there's actually a pretty concise example. Digital manufacturing is moving towards the idea that a lot size of one for production can be as economical as mass production. But that's not just for production, that also includes the planning, design, and delivery is becoming so streamlined. So if you think about it, that radically changes everything about the way revenue, cost, and profitability needs to be evaluated from an analytic point of view.
Excellent. Thanks, John and Larry. So Alex, I want you to chime in and describe how data analytics is enabling these changes that Larry is describing.
Yeah, so to Larry's point, data analytics is going to be a huge part of that digitalization effort. The ability to look back on the past scenarios and kind of predict future scenarios based on that information is going to be the only way companies are going to be maintaining long-term health. And I mean, honestly, if you're not doing data analytics in a competitive industry right now, you're pretty much just buying lottery tickets to fund your business. And we'll see how that works out for you.
That's an interesting point. Excellent. So I think we've level set. You know, in the introduction, though, I had used the term disruptive to describe the challenges that we're seeing in the new digital manufacturing space. With this disruption comes opportunity. So what kinds of disruption should we expect to consider and prepare for to accommodate in manufacturing, Alex?
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, to give you a non-answer, potentially everything. But what I do find most interesting is new products. They can be designed in the digital factory because of the new capabilities and integration of your supply chain in this digital world. You can have a theoretically optimized layout before you even manufacture your first prototype. And so that really opens the doors to you having new products that are really highly integrated, super customized, and very small batch, you know, that lot size of one that Larry was talking about. And you can absolutely delight some very picky customers that way. One of the other big major disruptions I see is, ties into Moore's Law, and that's we put sensors on anything and everything now. And I think that's going to open the door to a whole bunch of new markets.
Well, speaking in new markets, this is already happening. The manufacturing strategy and business model will change, sometimes dramatically, because of the digital manufacturing process and the new capabilities that can be included in a product. An example is a manufacturer of automated industrial valves. The sensors on the valves report maintenance condition and failure probability to the manufacturer. Because of its research, the sensors, the proprietary software, the manufacturer is in the best position to monitor all that data. So this manufacturer now provides the valves along with the monitoring service to customers as a subscription service rather than a product, while guaranteeing a level of performance in the same contract.
Larry, let's not forget that a second major change to the business model really is production, with the goal of digital manufacturing being a batch size of one and the virtual elimination of setup time. This will basically cement the death of a traditional product costing model, which is oftentimes standard costing. The digital model puts a much higher emphasis on overhead plus machine time and no doubt material costs. Mass quantities of this overhead of various types make the traditional concept of overhead really almost obsolete and most likely highly distorting in terms of the information value if you're simply using standard costing for financial reporting.
That's a really good point, Todd. And I think on a more human level, and I mean, this has been talked about a lot in other places, there's going to be a need for these new people with new skill sets and new jobs created around this data and analytics. So you're going to end up with some companies that do not have a strong training setup or do not have strong data entry standards. They're going to have to hire a lot of people to essentially do data janitorial work. On the other hand, you're going to have some top performing companies that are going to essentially hire one person that's a company optimizer that not only takes in production data, but also their performance data to optimize their production of widgets, materials, floor layouts, everything.
This is an excellent discussion about the disruption points that we may encounter. So thank you very much for our panel's insight. Well, let's move on here, though, to opportunities, because as I had mentioned, disruption is the correct term, I think, to describe much of this, but with disruption comes opportunity. I said that in the beginning. And so we need to be those who can take advantage of the new capabilities. What are the opportunities, and how do organizations prepare to benefit from digital transformation? So Larry, back to you, please.
Well, again, I'm speaking primarily from a finance perspective, but I'd like to think finance can play a leading role here and can leverage the opportunities. The CFO and the finance organization of a manufacturer that adopts digital manufacturing will face a wide variety of challenges and opportunities. These changes can happen gradually or fairly rapidly, and the key element is to recognize and embrace the change rather than ignore it or fight it. So to that end, CFOs that have a strong business partner orientation and a high level of understanding and familiarity with manufacturing operations and their customers will be much more aware and much better able to provide support and guidance than CFOs that have a narrow focus on traditional accounting and financing responsibilities.
And Larry, the business finance's participation in the digital manufacturing initiative definitely should not end with implementation and the continuing operation. This is particularly important for the early projects. It's important to gather as a team and to evaluate critically the project's current and potential future impact on the organization. The evaluation really needs to focus on continuous improvement, a term we're all familiar with. What worked? What didn't? What can be fixed? What needs to be done differently the next time? What's the impact on our people? What do they need to improve? What's the value created for our customers? Is this value being promoted? How should the value affect our pricing models? Are there any changes to our business model that we need to consider? And finally, what are the downstream savings or revenue opportunities generated by the project?
It's a great point, Todd. John, do you have something to add?
I do, and I was on mute. I apologize, because it's interesting, because I mean that's two lead financial people that are talking about the importance of the merge and the blend of a single unified model, taking into consideration a lot of this. I mean, this is a critical point, Todd, that for business, it isn't always a story about the numbers. We have to incorporate the operations, productions, the consumer and the customer impact as well. What does it cost us on a return? Things of that nature. It's really, and being the manufacturing guy, those are the things that those are the things that I think about when I'm on the factory floor. But the digital manufacturing, the digitalization of manufacturing creates a data-rich environment that is disruptive. It gives us a communication layer to bridge those chasms and those gaps in our understanding. It provides new insights and decisions that businesses were never able to make in the past. So, where do we go from there is a pretty good question.
Well, John, you brought up a really good point about ops. And I think what a lot of us need to realize is there's already a huge library of video games that are centered around this concept of a digital factory, optimization of machine placement, worker movement, floor layouts, and even just optimizing your supply chain. I think going forward, you're going to see these games inform the digitalization platforms. You're going to see these HUDs start to merge. And we're going to end up with a new generation of users that have a essentially inbuilt fundamental understanding of production optimization. I think that's going to let people build digital models and adapt and build in new opportunity.
And interesting that it's emerged with the game also, with the gaming industry.
sure.
Excellent points. Excellent points. Um, you know, and if an organization then, you know, is going to make an investment in digital manufacturing, you talked about the merging of gaming and certainly other technologies with maybe traditional manufacturing to optimize manufacturing. There's a lot of money at stake here, a lot of things to be spent, a lot of resources to be allocated. You know, what are some of the important considerations for setting these priorities for success? So Alex, can you continue on that thought?
Oh man. All right. Well, since we're talking about success, we have to talk about its ugly brother, failure. So let's get through that real quick. So when we do an implementation like this is a huge deal, right? Like you said, it's a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it's touching every part of the organization. So even if you know, had the best project managers in the world and somehow had unlimited money, it's probably going to fail somewhere. I mean, you want to bring your A game, but if you do hit a snag, you need to figure out why. I mean, I'm sure a good portion of us are familiar with Lean Six Sigma, the 5 Whys. If not, I will be talking about those a little bit later after the show. Um, but anyway, that aside, Todd, what's been your experience with this?
The progression into digital manufacturing typically isn't a giant step, but it's really a series of steps towards an increasingly capable and competitive state of production. The key issue to focus is on what does your organization expect from the investment? It's really about managing expectations like we do every day. In most cases, I'd say moving to a digital manufacturing is a strategic and competitive necessity to ensure long-term survival in the market. You may not have a choice in the end. In that situation, the return on investment of any specific project isn't the driving factor, which is almost, you know, from a finance standpoint, blasphemy. Because failure to develop the digital manufacturing capability will lead to the loss of market competitiveness and probably the end of your business.
And Todd, but that's an interesting point when you said that, you know, it leads to competitiveness, because where we're really going is what are we learning? Each one, and whether you call it an ugly brother of success, it's still a learning process, and we're talking about an incremental approach as opposed to a big bang, or as you said, giant step earlier. Approaching critical factors are primarily cultural. So you know, involving risk management, it involves organizational learning, organizational change. Are the investments structured for incremental success or failure, and in the learning of both? How do we get that to go along together, as well as organizationally, can we tolerate the learning or recovery from failure as a function of getting our projects structured to build on that success? And is the criteria that defines success clear? From the manufacturing perspective, I always find that that's very, very important. We talk about features and functions along the way, but we never define. It's really hard for some companies to define how they look at what success is. Are the risks and rewards clear to all relevant stakeholders along the way with what that is? Have the project staff and executive decision makers acquired the knowledge and necessary expertise to manage the project, to recover from setbacks and exploit successes for extrapolation going forward?
Well, I'd like to bring up one other important point. Digital manufacturing means converting the core value creating operations of the company to a technologically integrated and data rich state. The company needs to have the same quality of IT support, reliability, and expertise available as it has in its traditional mechanical and electrical capabilities. Manufacturers need to develop this capability through training, hiring, and contracting well before it becomes a flaw in the plan. creating a more holistic IT environment can mitigate the significant organizational risks, such as IT security, and potentially create strategic competitive advantages.
Good point. So a topic discussed frequently in the new MESA Manufacturing Analytics Guidebook is the importance of gaining alignment, the organization's goals, and the means to evaluate and measure results. And I think this is where manufacturing analytics differs from the traditional silo thinking inherent in today's operational KPIs. Manufacturing analytics in the digital manufacturing system has gone beyond real-time data. We are well into predictive and prescriptive monitoring, production equipment, process flows, product quality, supply chain. Now, how does an organization need to adapt to benefit from this? So Todd, can you give us some insight on that?
Thanks, Chris. The finance and financial information really must rise to the challenge of an increased speed and complexity of decision-making and decision support driven by digital manufacturing. In the digital manufacturing environment, direct product cost becomes increasingly smaller as an economic decision point, causally modeling the value chain from the customer contact and relationship management through order placement, design, production, delivery, service, and customer feedback really becomes critical to understanding your business. Larry, I think it's an ideal time for you to sort of do a deep dive into the graphic we're being shown right now.
Yeah, well, thanks, Todd. So the slide you see here is the Institute of Management Accountants Conceptual Framework for Management Accounting. It provides a good reference for how to think about costing purely for internal decision support. It's a topic covered in the new Manufacturing Analytics Guidebook. The model's focus is on creating an operational model that is costed based on the principle of causality for modeling and analogy, the principle of analogy for information use. This framework is much better suited to decision-making with digital manufacturing because it models the reality of resource and process characteristics first with operational quantities and then with money, unconstrained by financial accounting standards. This allows the real-time, data-rich environment of manufacturing, of digital manufacturing, to be represented financially in real-time cost simulations.
And Larry, to that end, I think data integration across the enterprise is critical to success here. You're thinking the requirements for a business's financial data and analytics go well beyond just the systems of financial accounting and reporting or operational systems. It requires causal data to support it, and that's oriented toward integrating all the data encompassing the entire company, as well as data from outside the company, market data.
Excellent points on data alignment. So we've had a lot to digest, an awful lot of content here, a lot of great ideas on the transformative nature of digital manufacturing and what's at stake and where the opportunities are, and they're quite a number. It's transformative, as I think that we can all see here. But I want to wrap up the discussion before I overload everyone. And I want to summarize with a couple of key takeaways that I can get to every one of our participants on the panel to share with us. Alex, can you give me a key takeaway? And then I'd ask John, Larry, and Todd to also chime in.
Sure, Chris. So I'm going to keep it simple. Start small, fail early and often, and be ready to learn.
Excellent.
Good thought. I really like that. I like fail early and often. But with digitalization of manufacturing, this really addresses that issue. As I stated earlier, it starts to bridge those chasms of manufacturing and executive decision making, understanding and creates understanding in a single unified model. Big takeaway here also is yesterday, for the last couple of days, I've been involved in the Manufacturing Leadership Council virtual Rethink event, and they also have been talking that the concept of data is the new oil came up, and then someone was able to retort with, it's really not new oil, it's really the new renewable energy. It's the new sunshine, solar panel, and battery mix, because it's about traditional operations, you typically taking data once, using it and driving to a decision. Now we can take that data, absorb it, make a decision, convert that later, reboost it, add it to new data, and then create new predictive analytics that are going to drive us to improve performance. I mean, I've been in this business a long time. I cannot wait to see what's coming next, because this industry has gotten us a long way. Larry.
Well, I'm going to step back to my financial expertise and say traditional financial systems and reporting won't give you what you need. What is needed is advanced managerial costing that reflects causality and focuses purely on internal decision support. That's the only way you're ever going to connect the vast quantity of operational data in digital manufacturing with anything close to real-time finance.
Todd, any key takeaways from you?
Definitely. On the subject of management accounting, as somebody who's day-to-day operating as a controller, it's very important that you understand that you really have two hats. You have a traditional financial accounting hat. You're never going to get away from that. There are all sorts of reasons for that. But to support what Larry said, you really have to change your mindset when you move into your management accounting hat, or when you put that on. You know, it's really about supporting the operations, and operations get this, but understand that depending on your CFO and your infrastructure above you, it's going to take time and it's going to take convincing for people to really start to value management accounting. And I think secondly, a quick point about project scope. Having done implementations of IT systems for many years, really controlling that scope with your first project is key, but also never throw away the idea of what other pieces need to be put onto the backside of your project to get to your end state. Never forget about where you want to go and how you're going to get there, but make sure you break that down into digestible pieces, because what you want first and foremost as you start this out is a raging success, even though things won't always go right.
That is, and it's probably one of the key themes that I've seen throughout this entire discussion is that you know, we've said start small, incremental. We've said take steps, fail often, and what you're saying really, Todd, is don't forget to build a roadmap. Don't forget your destination. Put out the milestones. Make ambitious goals, and plan on getting there. It's a long destination. You got to put the plan together. So with that set of key takeaways and a mindfulness of discussion that we've had, I'd like to open it up. And for any of those, for those of you who are listening live, if you have any questions, anything that you'd like us to discuss or answer for you, now is the time for you to submit those questions. And Larry, if you can keep an eye on that, the insightfulness that's been presented in this webcast. And where you can learn more from that, as I pointed out, is through MESA, MESA International, which again, we are all part of because we are part of the MESA Analytics Working Group. We have actually published over many years through this working group an ongoing series of white papers and webcasts and guidebooks. And you can see many of them depicted here by their face pages. Most recently, was the Manufacturing Analytics Guidebook, an update to our earlier metrics guidebooks, which series which takes into consideration the evolving world of analytics and how it fits into manufacturing, many of the same topics that we discussed here today. This is the 2020 edition, just came out a couple months ago. It's available through MESA, so I would encourage you to take a look at the MESA resource library and the website and check it out. And with that, I'd like to say thank you to all my panelists and fellow analytics working group members. This was a terrific discussion. For those of you who are listening online, I really appreciate the time that you spent with us, and I hope that this was insightful. And we will definitely share with you and others links to when this webcast becomes posted in electronic format so that you can revisit it again, share it with others.